My mother told me to hide my baby so I wouldn't steal my sister's spotlight, then try to secretly give him away for adoption. So my sister is getting married at the end of this year, and I gave birth to my son about 3 weeks ago. Everyone was excited about the baby, everyone except my mother. But honestly, I wasn't even surprised. To her, nothing is more important than her precious golden child. And that's my younger sister. I obviously got pregnant a while ago. And my sister got engaged to her boyfriend of 3 years when I was already 6 months along. Anyone who can do basic math would realize that by the time she got married, I would have already had my baby. Now, it might have been different if my sister wanted a small, intimate wedding she could plan quickly, but that's not who she is. She's always dreamed of a huge, extravagant celebration. And both she and her fiancé made it clear early on that their wedding would take a while to plan. Still, it's just a couple of weeks after their engagement, my mom showed up at my house looking worried and serious. She told me she wanted me to do something about my pregnancy because she didn't want it to upset my sister. Let me be clear, my sister and I are not close. She's spoiled and entitled, and since our dad passed away a few years ago, we haven't spoken. The only reason I even stayed in contact with our mom was because I'd promised my father I'd look after her. He didn't think my sister was responsible enough to handle that on her own. And sadly, he was right. Even though my sister was always my mom's favorite, I still tried to keep some kind of relationship with her. That is, until she came to my house one day to tell me about my sister's engagement. I thought she was just coming over to share the news, but no. She went on to say that since I was giving birth the same year my sister was getting married, I would steal her spotlight because apparently a baby is a bigger milestone than a wedding. I couldn't even wrap my head around that logic. I told her she was being paranoid. First of all, nobody was going to skip my sister's wedding because I had a baby. And second, I wasn't even going to be invited to the wedding. We're not friends. She wasn't invited to mine either. So how could I overshadow her if I wasn't even going to be there? There was nothing to worry about. It's not like I'm some kind of celebrity. No one would be talking about me or my baby at her wedding. I thought I was making perfectly reasonable points. But then my mom told me I had to hide my pregnancy and later, the baby too, from everyone in the family and all our mutual friends. She didn't want me to steal the limelight from my sister. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I argued with her, we got into a massive fight, and after that, stopped talking to her. I did feel guilty about breaking my promise to my dad. But what choice did I have? She was being completely irrational, and I was already hormonal, emotional, and easily frustrated. I didn't have the mental energy to deal with her nonsense. Since then, she hasn't been involved at all. It's just been me, my husband, and his family taking care of everything. She wasn't even there when I gave birth. My husband had called her that day, hoping she'd show up, but she said she couldn't because she was out with my sister. And honestly, even if she wasn't with her, I doubt she would have come. I'm just not a priority for her, and that's the painful truth. If she could cut off her own daughter over something as petty as stealing the limelight by simply having a baby, then I really have nothing left to say to her. So for all these reasons, we've had zero contact, and I was totally okay with that. But then, out of the blue, she called me a few days ago. I didn't pick up at first, so she started blowing up my phone with texts, begging me to answer because she needed to talk. She said it was something really serious. It was obvious that she had some bad news to share, and honestly, I wasn't ready to hear it. I wanted to talk to her, but I kept thinking about the promise I'd made to my father. Eventually, I decided to pick up the call, and honestly, I'm glad I did. That's how I found out my mother is in legal trouble. She tried to put my baby up for adoption without our consent, and the adoption agency found out. It was a case of fraud and misrepresentation. Apparently, she contacted an agency and falsely claimed that she had power of attorney, stating that both my husband and I were addicts who had been declared unfit by the court. She said that, as the baby's guardian, she had decided to place him for adoption. But of course, they quickly discovered that all the documents she submitted were forged. The adoption process was stopped immediately, and now they're taking legal action. She was calling me because she was terrified about what was coming. The agency had informed her that she'd be served within days, and before they could track me down to inform me, she decided to come clean herself. She was crying on the phone, begging me to help her. But I couldn't even begin to understand how she thought I'd lift a finger for her after something that vile. I get that she wanted my sister to have all the attention, but to go as far as trying to give away my child, that was beyond disgusting. And honestly, it was dumb too, because now this has drawn even more attention to me. And I plan to make sure of it, because I'm going to sue her. After she finished explaining everything, I ended the call. I had nothing more to say. I didn't feel sorry for her if anything. I believe she deserved everything coming her way and more. Later that same day, the adoption agency reached out to me as well to explain the situation and go over next steps. I had already spoken to my husband after my mom's call, and once the agency contacted us directly, we both agreed we were going to pursue legal action against her. We spoke to a lawyer the next day, and within a few days we had filed a civil lawsuit. The legal proceedings are about to begin. But because of how serious this situation is, criminal charges have also been filed. At this point, there's almost no chance of mediation. Her best bet is to hope for an out-of-court settlement or maybe a plea deal for the criminal case, but even then, she might be looking at jail time. Right now, she's under house arrest. But that hasn't stopped her from reaching out. She's been sending me email after email, begging for help. At least now she's apologizing. She said she lost control because she was so angry about my refusal to hide my pregnancy and baby. For the sake of my sister, she admits what she did was wrong and says she's truly sorry. I've been able to ignore her until now. But yesterday, she hit me where it hurt. She brought up the promise I made to my father. She reminded me that I swore I'd always take care of her no matter what. That completely caught me off guard. I'd had that conversation with my dad privately. So how did she even know about it? Now, I'm stuck in this awful position suing my own mother for trying to put my child up for adoption behind my back. I've decided not to drop the civil lawsuit. She deserves this. She brought this on herself, and I'm not backing down, not even because of that promise. I took my words seriously after my father passed away. I did everything I could to live up to it these past few years. But right now, that promise is being twisted into emotional blackmail. And I almost fell for it. Using my father's memory as a shield for her actions, that's just cruel. That's manipulation at its lowest. And a lot of people have criticized me for even trying to honor that promise in the first place. I've held on to that promise for so long, even when it was obvious my mother didn't care about me. But if you've ever lost a parent, you'll understand grief is heavy. I lost my father to cancer, and that promise I made, it was on his deathbed. Maybe others could move past that, but I can't. That kind of vow isn't something I take lightly, and it's the only reason I've tolerated my mother's behavior for as long as I have. But this crossed a line. Now that I've made my decision, nothing is going to make me change my mind. Even my husband agrees I made the right call. It's not like I'm asking for some huge payout, only want her to repay what I've spent on her over the past few years. I've been the one taking care of her because my sister wouldn't spend a single dollar on our mother. Then again, she never spends money on anyone but herself. That's probably why my father trusted me with a responsibility he knew she wouldn't step up. But even he couldn't have imagined this happening. I'm sure he'd forgive me. And even if he wouldn't, I still have to go through with this for my own peace of mind. I've thought it all through. The money she owes me won't bankrupt her. My father left her the house and a decent amount of savings. She'll be fine. And even if she loses everything, she still has her brother to rely on. Either way, it won't be my concern anymore. I've done everything I could for her, and it's never been enough. I'm done trying to be the good daughter. I'm a mother now. That's all that matters. It's been a few weeks since my last update, and we're currently going through mediation. Everyone's trying to settle the civil lawsuit out of court, but so far, it hasn't gone well. Every session ends early because my mother keeps getting emotional and starts yelling. I don't know if she's doing it on purpose or if she's actually coming unhinged. But whatever the case, it's just delaying what's already inevitable. And I don't think she realizes there's no way out. Of this for her, my uncle has also reached out to me, trying to pressure me into backing off. He said the amount I'm asking for is way too much and totally unfair. He even reminded me that she raised me as a baby and accused me of being ungrateful for not forgiving her for one stupid little mistake. But that's just it. It wasn't. Some minor mistake. She forged legal documents. That kind of thing doesn't happen in the heat of the moment. It takes planning. It was calculated and deliberate. And honestly, the more I think about it, the less forgiveness I feel. What if the adoption agency hadn't caught it? What if they believed her? No amount of money will ever make up for what she did. And I'm already being generous, only asking for reimbursement for what I've spent on her, not a penny more. Of course, that's not written into the settlement paperwork, so my uncle has no clue. Even when I explained it to him, he still said I was being cruel. Eventually, I started getting frustrated. I didn't want to fight with him. We've always had a decent relationship, and I hoped to keep it that way. But he just wouldn't let up. So I snapped. I told him that if he cared so much about his sister, maybe he should pay the settlement himself. That way we could wrap this up quickly and move on. That's when he lost it. Started shouting at me, calling me all sorts of names, and that was the end of the conversation. I hung up. There was no point in continuing. I just don't understand how anyone could defend her at this point, given everything she's done. On one side, there's my uncle, and on the other, my sister, who's been unbearable ever since she learned about the lawsuit. For some reason, she's been painting me as the villain, saying I'm only doing this to get revenge on her and my mom for not giving me enough attention. At least my uncle had the courage to speak to me directly. My sister, on the other hand, has been gossiping behind my back to everyone we know. That's how the rest of the family found out about the lawsuit. I never wanted it to get out like this. This is private, deeply personal, and honestly, kind of disturbing. I didn't feel the need to explain any of it to anyone. But now, because she's been going around running her mouth. It's been getting calls and messages from family members with all sorts of questions. And even though I hate talking about this, I've started answering them mainly because, if this ends up going to court, I might need some of these people to testify. So, I keep telling myself it's better that it came out now, rather than later. What really frustrates me is the narrative my sister's creating. She's telling people I'm being vindictive, that I'm dragging our mom into court over some petty grudge. But I don't think she even understands the severity of what our mother tried to do. This isn't about sibling rivalry. Yes, it isn't. Some childish revenge plot. Our mother attempted to give away my child. That's not Dramide's criminal. And the fact that my sister still can't grasp that is both infuriating and sadly expected. She really is my mother's daughter in every sense. I've spoken to a few other family members, and it's kind of ironic. This entire situation started because my mother wanted my sister's wedding to be the biggest thing of the year. That's why she asked me to hide my pregnancy and my baby. And now, because of her own actions, this scandal is going to be the thing everyone remembers for years to come. I hate to say it, but from a gossip perspective, it's the kind of thing that spreads fast. If I wasn't directly involved, I'd probably find it juicy too. It's trashy, I know, but also poetic justice. Even my sister's extravagant wedding can't top this kind of drama. My mother has finally agreed to our terms, and will be receiving the settlement money soon. But the criminal charges are still ongoing. She and her lawyer are doing everything they can to avoid jail time, but from what I've heard, it's not looking good. I've already been contacted by the prosecution to testify, as have the people from the adoption agency. Even my sister, and a few other close family members have been approached as potential witnesses. It's been a couple of weeks since the last update, and things have been going a bit more smoothly on our end. My husband and I even took a short weekend trip with our son to visit his great-grandparents. Not my grandparents, they passed away years ago, but thankfully, my husband's grandparents are still around. While we were there, I talked to them about everything that's been going on. They told me I was doing the right thing by standing up for my child. I even told them about the guilt I've been carrying for breaking my promise to my father. But they reassured me that if my dad were still alive, he would have likely told me to fight back because this situation is just outrageous. That really helped ease the guilt, and I guess I needed that change of scenery more than I realized. When I got back, I felt lighter, like I could finally breathe again. This entire ordeal has been emotionally exhausting. Even though my mother and I have always had our differences, things had never gotten this extreme before. But after a few sessions with the lawyers, she finally seemed to realize that yelling and storming out wouldn't get her anywhere. She must have known it was only a matter of time before things ended up in court would have been even worse for her. Probably on her lawyer's advice, she decided to behave and let him do all the talking. During those meetings, she barely looked at me, and when she did, was only for a fleeting second, like she couldn't even stand to make eye contact. Honestly, I'm glad. She doesn't deserve to feel like she has the right to look at me. Anymore, my uncle and sister are still spreading hate about me in the family, but I've stopped caring. The people who support me will continue to do so regardless. And those who only want to gossip will likely stay on the sidelines without getting involved. They're not a threat to me. I know the truth, and just because someone says something doesn't magically make it real. It's been a little over a month since my last update. My mother accepted the terms, and a couple of weeks ago, we finally received the settlement money. We've decided to put it aside for our son's future. We're not in immediate need of it, and we're honestly just relieved. That money was rightfully ours, the very thing I'd spent on my mother since my father passed away. My sister knows that. Still, she showed up out of nowhere the other day, yelling and accusing me of ruining her wedding. Apparently, our mom had promised to pay for part of the wedding. But since I'd sued her and taken back the money, she couldn't fulfill that promise anymore. And now it was all somehow my fault. The wild part is while yelling at me, my sister actually said out loud that I had taken back all the money from our mom, basically admitting it was mine to begin with. So she clearly understood the situation. Yet somehow, she still thought it was okay to show up at my house and scream at me instead of questioning how any of this even happened in the first place. When she arrived, I didn't even let her in. I talked to her at the door. The moment she started shouting, I slammed it shut. I didn't need that kind of chaos in my day. I'm already busy juggling work still on maternity leave, but trying to stay ahead by working from home and taking care of my newborn. Just didn't have the time or energy for more drama. But even after I shut the door, she wouldn't leave. She stood outside, yelling about how unfair her life was and how I'd ruined everything. Eventually, I got so annoyed that I called the police. Within minutes, they arrived. And while the officers were taking her away, she screamed curses at me so loudly that neighbors who had probably been peeking from behind their curtains came out to watch. It was humiliating. And worse, she shouted some truly disturbing things I won't repeat here about me and my baby. They were threatening enough that I felt genuinely unsafe. I had already called my husband as soon as I phoned the police, and he rushed home early. When he got there, I told him everything she had said while being taken away. One of the officers even suggested that we file a restraining order. Honestly, we're strongly considering it. Something is clearly very wrong with her. She knows where I live, how to contact me, and if she really wanted to make my life uncomfortable, she absolutely could. I'm not saying she'll act on her threats, but there are plenty of other ways to intimidate someone, and I'm scaredest, especially now that I'm a mother. I can't risk episodes like that happening again. After a long, serious conversation with my husband, we decided it was time to move. I was already planning to change my phone number and other contact information, so only those who truly respect our boundaries can reach us. Honestly, it's not just about my sister. I've also been bombarded with messages and calls from people only interested in gossip, which is exhausting. That was another big reason for the change. The last thing I need is visitors pretending to be concerned while really just stirring up more drama. Thankfully, my husband's doing well financially, and if needed, we could always ask my in-laws for help. But we're definitely moving, and we're absolutely filing for a restraining order against my sister. She's clearly unstable, and I don't want her near me or my family again. Everything has been so expensive lately: legal fees, moving costs, and of course, caring for a newborn. It's stretched us thin. But when I think about the safety and well-being of my son, every bit of it feels worth it. I'm emotionally drained, but my husband and my son are what keep me going. I haven't said this enough, but I'm truly grateful to have a partner who understands me so deeply. And I'm even more thankful that his family has stood by me through all of this. After my dad passed away, it was mostly my in-laws who stepped up and were there for me more than my own mother ever was. I know not everyone gets that lucky with their in-laws, so I don't take them for granted. These past few months have been messy, painful, and overwhelming. I just hope the storm ends soon. Last week, the verdict in my mother's criminal trial finally came through. She was convicted on all charges. Since she's a first-time offender, she avoided jail time but received a hefty fine, which includes restitution payments to both the adoption agency and me. She's also been sentenced to community service hours and must attend court-mandated mental health treatment at a rehabilitation facility. Her lawyer apparently leaned hard into the psychological distress angle, and I guess it worked. I haven't spoken to her since she accepted the terms of our civil lawsuit and we reached a settlement. I only heard about her conviction through family members, and honestly, that's more than enough for me. Around the same time, I was also granted the restraining order against my sister. That felt like a massive win. We're currently in the middle of moving, and though it's stressful, things are finally coming together. Financially, we're in a better place. With the court-ordered payments incoming, we may not even need to lean on our in-laws or touch the settlement money we set aside for our son's future. That's a huge relief. Even though my mother caught a break in court, she hasn't been so lucky in her personal life. I've been hearing plenty of gossip and even received screenshots of a social media post my sister made. In it, she publicly distanced herself from everything our mother did, claiming she knew nothing about it until recently and that she completely disagrees with her actions. She even went so far as to say our mom deserved the conviction. That's hilarious, considering how vocal she was about taking my mother's side before things blew up. But from what I've heard, her sudden change of heart had more to do with her fiancé and his family. Apparently, they weren't comfortable with him marrying into a family wrapped in legal scandals and drama, and they were thinking about postponing the wedding. So, my sister decided to throw our mother under the bus publicly. It's sad for my mom, honestly. She spent her entire life obsessing over my sister, putting her above everyone else, including me. And now, when it mattered most, that same daughter abandoned her to protect her own reputation. It's tragic, but it's also exactly what she deserves. And no, I don't feel sorry for her. Now that I'm moving, I plan to cut ties with all of them for good. I truly can't wait.